Hello Biblionauts, I am Rix among other things, and today we are back with the book Never Written tag. I moved everything to this notebook because it's bigger, it will be more legible, and I aim to fill every single page here with a book idea, a book that doesn't exist. There is already 2 videos I made, plus a bunch of videos that other people made, talking about the book Never Written tag, books that have never been written but that could be written. Maybe perhaps you could write them, perhaps I could write them, or someone else, some hero among the crowds that will rise and write a book that has never been written and that we all are waiting for. So on that note, I don't know how many books I'm going to talk about. I've already written here quite a few, but probably I'll do 5, and we can leave another 5 for another day. This is a great thing to keep coming back to, and also see if my opinion changes on some of these books that I believe should be written, but perhaps no, perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps some of these have already been written, perhaps the idea is actually not that good. Yeah, most of this I wrote on my commute to Scotland when I was going there, and then I completely forgot about it. I had it on the side of my bed and I completely forgot about the book Never Written tag, but here we are again. Let's see if anyone is able to come up with more books than I will come up over the next few months. So yeah, here we have the old book Never Written ideas so far. Sacred Order, that's a good one. Solo, I think this was the last one. An oversized hardcover about deep diving, cave diving. And this is the first idea. This is the first book that has not yet been written. This is, how should we call it? I don't know yet. I wrote To Love or Not to Love. I feel like that Shakespearean sentence is very, very useful when I'm out of ideas to just like come up with a quick title. And then I wrote Love Beyond Prejudice and Taboo. And I wrote there a bunch of titles of other books that have aimed to present with, I mean, this is all a book about polyamory. It's a book about not necessarily polyamory as non-traditional forms of relational, of relations, of partner relations, not necessarily anymore between 2 individuals. It can be more than 2. Yeah, I as I said, there's quite a few books that have been written on this subject. None of them is definitive. What I want is one book to rule them all. Some of the ones that I wrote here that I consider, in some ways either suggest or explicitly defend forms of relating to others, of extracting relationships in a non-monogamous way, are Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan. He's a podcaster more than anything else and not a great writer. The book is interesting because it aims to be a history of a history and also like a science exploration of our relationship as primates towards bonobos rather than chimpanzees. I made a review about this book at the very beginning of my channel. And also a history of like all the instances in which we have presented non-monogamous forms of structuring our families. In the moment you don't have a monogamous sort of like a nuclear family, the whole structure of the family changes. So that was interesting. But again, the book it was definitely written by, I don't know how to explain it, but it was not in any way, it did not feel like it had given the last word. It was missing out on a lot of insight. Its reflections were not as elaborate as they would have been. And how much relied in anthropology and history did not account, still didn't account for so many other things that he would have used. Kind of like leave it there, like not necessarily, it didn't really do the whole job. It was aiming to, Sex at Dawn, like it almost sounds like the dawn of everything, which is a book that aims to be definitive as well, and to the best of my knowledge, it is in some ways. But this one didn't feel as elaborate at all. It felt like a very long podcast. In the way you were reading it. It's not that information in it was inaccurate, it was mainly accurate, but yeah. Then you have, I wrote here the elementary structures of kinship. Not that it's a book about polyamory at all, but I found was eye-opening to me to learn about marriage and it's the implications that marriage has in sort of like as a commercial trade in which the product, the commodity being exchanged is women and wealth and land. So like from fathers to husbands, one giving the daughter and the other one providing with land or some sort of like product, which kind of is the most impossible to ignore refutation of any reason why someone would marry, almost any reason, because someone could marry in order to provide someone else with a certain bureaucratic advantage. I leave that there. Yes. The family and the broken home. This is more, I think it was a journal article that I read a long time ago. What is My Tribe by Elvira del Olmo, I think, or Silvia del Olmo, I don't remember, but What is My Tribe is about how in hunter-gatherer societies, the children, because there was no way of testing the parental background of any children. Like they could never prove who the father was, because the blood test or anything like that did not exist. Every male in the tribe was likely to be the father of whatever kid was born, and that resulted on every single person in the tribe caring for every child. So it's like in that sense, every children would be born into a massive family of any number under 150 members. That meant that the richness of knowledge, the wealth of experience that a kid would have in its upbringing would be infinitely more rich than what we have with the nuclear family, in which two individuals, often mediocre, are in charge of 99% of the teachings and emotional support and knowledge and life lessons that a kid is supposed to have before the age of 18. Of course, that changes a little bit with the birth of the internet, and that would also be interesting to explore. But the point being that in this case, Olmo, I'm going to say her surname because that's the only thing I'm sure about as the author, defends that a non-monogamous structure for a family would be much more plausible, viable. It would bring a healthier child into being. And then I just wrote like chapter titles as like the more the merrier with a question mark. Free to love, free to fuck, reasonable boundaries, because that's another thing. I have had two, I don't know if successful is the word, but two wonderful long-term polyamorous relationships in the last 7 years. On the side of that, I've had many casual, non-monogamous relationships, and I've never had to. I've never had to make explicit something that for anyone with any emotional intelligence should have been implicit, obvious, which is that there is a certain kind of emotional housekeeping that needs to be acknowledged and done before anyone. I feel like for many people, the word polyamory is just a gateway into not caring about their partner at all and being in falling into the worst kind of toxicity, which is basically falling into alternative forms of relationships, but still with the most traditional mentality that one could fall into them. So yeah, that's I didn't want this video to be more than 10 minutes, but I only talked about one book and we are already in 10 minutes. So maybe we should leave it in one. This is one more book never written. Then the last one is Anecdotal Evidence, in which if this were to be my book, I would just talk about my experience with the numerous, you know, the few relationships that I've had, and you know, when I had my first non-monogamous relationship, I I did not know the word polyamory. I did not know it existed. So I came up with most of the things that other books like The Ethical Slut, which is a book I don't particularly like, although many people holds it as the book on polyamory, on non-monogamous relationships. So many books that develop sort of like the moral landscape for polyamory were completely unknown to me. All of them. You know, I came to this like I started reading about polyamory probably like 5 years after, 4 or 5 years after I had been in a loving relationship in which we both were completely free to do anything. My relationship towards other people could be defined as relational anarchy, in the sense that there's no boundaries in any relationship that are unreasonable. You know, there's no boundaries that have any sort of like looming monogamy in the background, or Judeo-Christian prejudice on the background. Like the boundaries that I would put in any relationship are very reasonable. Like, for example, don't do it on my workspace, because then I might have to see someone who might happen to be an asshole, or might happen not to understand the way in which we behave. Because this, at the end of the day, as much as it's become woke or alternative in a cool way, still is the vast majority of people does not structure relationships in this way, which means that you have to account for that. Just like, although homosexuality or other forms of sexuality might be trending in the internet in the real world, they are still discriminated on a daily basis. So one needs to account for that. It's not that a normal relationship, any relationship, should have boundaries. I personally believe that where there is love and trust, there shouldn't be any boundaries. There shouldn't have to be any contractual basis for the relationship. The contractual basis exist because of the society in which we live. Before, the nuclear family had a purpose. I'm not just saying that the birth of a nuclear family and everything was completely flawed. There was a reason for that. That reason was legitimate, or that it was purely for the oppression and manufacturing of pussy, is another question. I have heard arguments completely against it, and arguments justifying its existing in the past, and perhaps defending it in the present, or not. I consider monogamy to be obsolete, and I do think that most people who thinks that they are okay with monogamy or prefer monogamy, most arguments are more based on still some form of prejudice than real arguments, than real life experience, factual arguments based on that real life experience. Oh my god, I'm really losing my train of thought here. I'm kind of tired. I've been reading Hegel the whole morning. Okay, yeah. This is what happens when you read this kind of philosophy. You actually lose neurons. People think you become smarter. You actually lose neurons. I feel like I become more and more dumb the more and more systematic 20th or 19th century philosophy specifically, but also anything after Descartes, anything between Descartes and Lyotard really makes me lose neurons. But okay, I'm leaving that aside now. I can always hide between the big excuse, which is that English is not my first language. I'm actually really smart in Spanish, yeah, just so that you know. But yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is that polyamory rules, and there is no book yet that really shows how much better, how much more rational, and how much more caring, and how much superior, even in the ways of expressing love, it is, objectively. And objectively does not mean, I'm not meaning that there is no exceptions to this. One clear exception is that people have different personalities. Some people is more shy. Some people it takes longer to establish one-to-one relations. Some people has problems with time management, right? They cannot have many relationships at once, right? And all of that are still bad excuses, because not having a contractual on paper or on the divine landscape commitment not to fuck others, because at the end of the day, that is what it is that we are talking about, does not mean that you have to do it. I have had relationships. I mean, like in my current relationship, I don't think I've had sex with another person other than my partner for like a year. And that is not for not having had opportunities. I'm young, I live in a I have a rich social life, and I happen to be genetically gifted. So I could be having relationships with other people. I just don't feel like it. You could have a non-monogamous relationship for 50 years and never sleep with anyone else other than your partner. It's not about, and I couldn't stress this enough, it's not about sleeping with more people or having more relationship with more people that are sex affective or anything like that. It's only about not having some sort of a priori agreement that forbids you to do that. It's only about being able to do whatever you want when you want to do it, because there is no monogamous relationship that we would consider healthy that forbids you from that keeps you away from expressing affection towards your friends. You can hug a friend, but you cannot but you cannot give your friend a blowjob, right? Why is that? Is it if you really think of it in objective terms, what is the difference between one form of physical interaction in which you show affection to one person and the other? You are just through touch, through tactile, through a physical means, you are showing affection to an individual. Which is the difference between one and the other? I genuinely don't get it. At some point, I got someone to answer to this question of what is the difference between kissing someone and hugging someone. Why one is suddenly, like a break on the monogamous contract, on the contract of monogamy. You shall not fuck someone else. That is because all our love and all our relationship is structured on that very fact. If you do fuck someone else, if you do kiss anyone else, you have betrayed me. That means that you no longer love me somehow. What is the difference between kissing and hugging? What makes it so different? I once got someone to answer to this, someone who was, was actually trying to defend that I was entirely wrong in saying that there was an objective reason, or that at least that monogamy was based on irrational, for the most part, was based on irrational premises or on irrational ways of behaving or relating towards each other. And this person answered to me that the difference was fluid exchange. They said, no, the difference is that there is a fluid exchange, and through that exchange, there is maybe like this reproduction, or that the real thing is reproduction if we are talking about different kind of fluid, or maybe that the fluid has some sort of energy. You are doing an energy exchange that is it happens on a deeper level with another person. Just pure mysticism at this point. But I said, okay, if it's all about fluid exchange, then you should not have any problem with your partner having sex with someone else, so long as they don't kiss and they use a condom, because then there is no fluid exchange. Because if you really follow any of the arguments to support monogamy, not any, again, there might be other arguments, like you have some sort of social disability, or you are very, very shy, things like that. You simply prefer it. Okay, if you simply prefer it, I would still examine it. I'm not saying that you have to become polyamorous, but I would personally, just because because so many things in your life, if you are in a monogamous relationship, are structured by those premises, by that preference, I would examine it, see why you prefer that. And if you follow the arguments, eventually you would get at pure irrationality. at a point in which, you know, like the premise is either flawed, or you have to say something as silly as fluid exchange or energy exchange or deeper. What do you mean deeper? Do you think that someone's best friend might not be much more deeply interconnected with that person than someone's partner? Because that, I think that's the case for many people. When you grow up with someone and you are best friends, but if that person gets a partner, the partner is not jealous it doesn't feel jealousy towards the best friend. But if the other person casually like kisses someone in a party, that is the end of the world, or the end of the relationship at least. So yeah, this was one. I have like 10 more, so I'll make another one. But just in case someone needed some inspiration for some writing event coming soon, or already started, there you go. This is To Love or Not to Love. This is one more book never written tag, or not tagged, because I'm not tagging anyone. Everyone is tagged. Do whatever you want. But this is the definitive book, history, study, and essay on polyamory, on non-monogamous relationships. And yeah, I think I got carried on, and that's what happens when you have a lot to say about a subject. Have a nice day. I'll see you on the other side, and I look forward to hearing whatever book ideas you might have, if you feel capable of returning with this, or if you wanna give your piece of literary nuance for the first time. I'll be watching on the comments, and also please do let me know if you make any video about it. Thank you. See you on the other side.